And let's do it. Welcome to a brand new episode of the Keith Lee Show. And folks, it's Friday. Thank God it is Friday. We've had a long week, a tumultuous week. The left is still on the prowl. The left still can't take a look at the facts and figure out what's happening into the world today. We see poll numbers collapsing for Joe Biden. We had the grand jury a couple of days ago deciding not to charge the police officers in the Breonna Taylor case with murder, and that was the right decision. This is a grand jury made of 12 people that saw all of the facts and all of the evidence. We heard neighborly testimony. They heard the police officers announce that they were entering the apartment, and no charges of murder was brought against the police. Instead of just looking at the facts and saying, well, you know what, maybe in this case, right? No, we all know with all the charges of racism and police brutality and oppression, we all know it's all nonsense. It's complete nonsense. The left has to make up new cases every single day. Or they make martyrs out of people like George Floyd and Rayshard Brooks and every other criminal out there. The left has tried doing that with Breonna Taylor. Oh, Breonna Taylor, she was just an EMT supporting her community. Nonsense, okay? This woman ran a trap house, okay? The reason the police came to her apartment, and we will reiterate this point again, is because her boyfriend and every other dude she was banging was involved with drugs, okay? And they even thought that she was involved with the process as well. Brand new cars, brand new clothing, tons of cash in the apartment. She was under investigation before. Now, does that mean she should have died? No. But who put her in that position? You could easily say it was her. If she wasn't banging this drug dealer, she would still be alive. If her drug dealer boyfriend didn't fire at the police after they announced that they were coming into the apartment, Breonna Taylor would still be alive today. These are the facts. Now, your favorite celebrities, either they're ignoring the facts or they're idiots or what? I have no idea. We have Nancy Pelosi out there calling the police officers murderers. We have John Legend calling the police officers murderers. And many others, Lizzo, everybody's famous fat celebrity. I know I'm a little chunky now and then, but God, this lady's fat. Jesus Christ. And let's face it, the only reason she's popular in the first place is because of her husky nature. But before we get into all that, thank you guys for listening. If you're listening to us on the podcast, please be sure to like and subscribe. We're available on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, and iHeartRadio, the #1 commercial podcast publisher in the world. Now, say that many times over and 3 times over. And if you're listening to us on YouTube or watching us on YouTube, please be sure to like and subscribe. Smash that like button, smash the subscribe button. And I thank you so much for your support. If you'd like more information, you can reach me at www.thekeithleeshow.com. That's www.thekeithleeshow.com. You can also follow me on Twitter at @TheRealKeithLee and on Parler at @TheRealKeithLee. So I kind of went into detail as to why the black community is so messed up and to why so many in the black community are willing to accept lies, are willing to believe things that even in the back of their brains they know isn't true. The notion that all cops are bad, all cops are out there trying to kill black people, this is something that is deeply rooted into the black psyche. Now, there are many blacks who have awakened. Thankfully, that I had my awakening when I was 17 years old. And there are a lot of younger black conservatives or newly developed black conservatives that are coming out today. And they know that they've been lied to their entire lives as well. But yet, the left continues to push these lies. At the end of the day, they're all about power. At the end of the day, if they have to lie, cheat, and steal, and sometimes kill to get their power, they're more than willing to do that. And that's what we're finding today. What happened to Breonna Taylor was a tragedy. I don't think anybody would say otherwise. It's a terrible situation. She should have been with the guy. The guy shouldn't have fired at the cops. It's a terrible thing. But it's also terrible when every other black person has been shot by the cops. Listen, the reason they were shot by the cops in the first place is because of what? They're putting themselves in positions that they should not be in. Look at the case of Rayshard Brooks in Atlanta. This was a guy who was on probation. If he was arrested and charged with a DUI, guess what? That means going back to jail. You have police footage, right? The cops are talking to this guy for at least 20 minutes. Being very nice to the guy, trying to be reasonable with the guy. And what happens? Rayshard Brooks attacks both of these police officers. He slams one of them to the ground, gives him a concussion. And after assaulting the other police officer, he takes that police officer's taser and attempts to use it against that officer. The officer had no choice but to fire at Rayshard Brooks. Now, the morons on the left would say, well, he only had a taser. What was he going to do? Well, what do you think tasers are for? Tasers are meant to incapacitate people. And if you incapacitate a cop who has a gun, I'm going to calm down. Who has a gun in his holster, what do you think Rayshard Brooks would have been able to do with that gun? Many black people would say, oh, you know what? Why didn't the police just let him go home? The man committed a crime. A DUI is a serious crime. And it's especially serious when somebody is on probation and is likely to go back to jail for committing this DUI. Just let him go home. Just let him go home. This is the constant refrain you're getting from the left. This is why you hear the left talking about defunding and disbanding the police. Well, if you disband the police, who's going to police the animals? Who's going to stop Pookie shooting up the neighborhood? Who's going to stop the freaking drug dealers on the street? Who's going to stop the muggers knocking little old grannies over the head for a couple of dollars? Who's going to stop all of that? Social workers? Because we're getting to a point now where this whole idea of defunding and disbanding the police, it's really taking hold in the black community. And you have to say to yourself, you have to ask yourself the question, how is that possible? How can anybody accept that? How can anybody get to a point where you think the police are the problem and not the criminals? Logically, that makes no sense whatsoever. Yet this is the main talking points in the Democrat Party. This is what you're hearing from the quote unquote black leaders, whoever the hell they are. From the Marxist radicals and Black Lives Matter to the usual suspects like Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson. These are people who can hire personal security. These are people who can live behind walls. These are people that are totally protected. But when you look at the most dangerous cities in America, if you look at 9 out of the top 10 most dangerous cities in America, they are predominantly black neighborhoods, black cities. So if you disband the police in those cities, what do you think is going to happen to the black people? We have idiots like AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, that says if you get rid of the cops, it's going to look like the suburbs. What? Yes. It's this weird reasoning. You see, if the police weren't there, then crime would magically go away. If you believe this logic, police force black people to commit crimes. Police force black people to buy illegal handguns, to move tons of drugs in black neighborhoods. This is all the police's fault. So goes the left. But what is the left going to do when the inevitable carnage comes? I'll tell you what they're going to do. Not a damn thing. Because if Joe Biden is able to win this election, and we've gone around the country, we've cut $1.5 billion from the NYPD, Seattle has cut their budget. Portland is cutting their budget. Wisconsin, so on and so forth. What do you think's going to happen? Do you believe Joe Biden's going to be out there trying to protect black folks? No. He got their votes. And now he's in the White House. Who gives a damn? You see, as a black conservative, not just me, you can talk about Candace Owens, Larry Elder, Jesse Lee Peterson. I mean, there's so many of them. So, it's compared to the rest of the black community, not that many, but the numbers are growing. Thank God the numbers are growing. We're called house niggas. We're called coons, self-hating. I've been called Oreo, eggplant. God knows how many other things I've been called. Because when people like myself are telling the truth about the black community and telling the truth about what the Democrats have done to the black community, somehow we're the ones that are self-hating. I want black people to do well. I've been able to do well because of this fantastic country. There are so many black liberals, by the way, who are out there claiming that white supremacy reigns supreme. White people are oppressing blacks, the same millionaire black people that are living in mansions, that are making hundreds of millions of dollars a year playing a kid's game. We see that with football. We see that with basketball. We have one of the richest women in the world, Oprah, talking about white supremacy and oppression. When, as far as I know, when my grandmother used to watch Oprah, see, my grandmother, when she was working back in the old days, she loved Oprah so much that she would literally record every single episode. And man, let me tell you something. So back in those days, you would come home from school and you want to watch Power Rangers, right? It's Power Rangers, and you had like VR Troopers. There were a lot of cool shows at the time. And there was that Left Wing Captain Planet. Now, Captain Planet, when you're a kid, you just think it's cool. You don't realize it's a bunch of leftist garbage. Like if you don't know what Captain Planet was about. So literally you have these 5, teenage kids. They come together. They can summon Captain Planet, to protect Gaia, to protect Mother Earth. And the bad guys in every single episode, all polluting the oceans and, dumping waste into parks. There was always these big fat corporate cats. Every single episode was the same thing. So anyway, that's how kids are being indoctrinated. At least how I was being indoctrinated when I was a kid. But I would come home. I like to watch a little Power Rangers now and then. And man, if I turned my grandmother's TV when she had that VCR set to record Oprah, look out. Man, I'm about to get my ass beat. Let me tell you. But anyway, so I remember watching some episodes of Oprah. And when I looked out into that audience, I can remember, just like it was yesterday, I swear to God, 80% of the people in that audience was white. When you look at the people that have always promoted Oprah, it wasn't just black people. The majority were white people. But now Oprah, after she's collected her billions, all of a sudden is talking about white supremacy and racism and oppression. What the hell? Now, if that's what oppression's all about, I want that oppression. We have a report today. John Legend's out there saying if the president gets reelected.
Pop star John Legend says Americans might quote.
Well, that's bad. Anyway, one man show. John Legend literally, according to the Hill today, John Legend says that he's going to leave the United States if the president's reelected. He said Americans might have to start thinking about going someplace else. Someplace else if Trump wins re-election. At some point, if that project, the president's project to destroy democracy, was to be in any way successful, you have to think about going someplace else. If America chooses to be that place, then people will have to start thinking about going somewhere else. And I am truly disturbed by what's happening in this country. Legend, along with his cookbook author wife, Chrissy Teigen, have been outspoken critics of the president. Legend 41 performed at last month's DNC and is a vocal supporter of Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden. He's out there all the time. His doofus wife is out there all the time talking about oppression. John Legend has more wealth, more privilege, and more power than 99% of white people in this country. Do you want to hear about the oppression John Legend talks about? Well, I have it for you. According to the New York Post, John Legend and Chrissy Teigen just recently bought a mansion for $17.5 million. That's a lot of oppression. First comes love, then comes marriage, then comes a baby in the baby carriage. But when it's 3 babies, you have to get a larger home. The couple who's expecting their 3rd child, a boy, have just bought a nearly 11,000 square foot home in Beverly Hills for $17.5 million. JB Builders recently completed this 11,000 square foot spread, which has 6 bedrooms and 9 bathrooms. The home includes marble and wood details, as well as 24 foot ceilings and floor to ceiling windows. Entertaining areas include a bar and a lounge and a 500 square foot media room with an aromatic, Jesus Christ. Oh, this is awful today. They have a system that pumps in wonderful fragrances into the rooms. And they have a 145-inch projector screen. As for private quarters, a 30-foot interior bridge leads to the master suite. Well, wait, you can't say master anymore. Because remember, you think about master, then you think about slavery. You know, this is really bad, very deeply rooted. This talks about the sins and the history of slavery in this country. So I think the new word that we like to use in real estate is primary. So you have a 30-foot interior bridge that leads to the primary suite, which has suede panel walls, 2 walk-in closets, and pocket doors that lead to a balcony with recessed infrared heaters. Oh my God. If that's oppression, give it to me. I want that. I can take 11,000 feet. Right, JJ? I can do something with that. But John Legend's out there talking about racism. He's claiming this country is oppressive to black people. If white supremacy was really a thing, if white oppression was really a thing, why would white people allow him to pay $17.5 million? First of all, they wouldn't allow him to get that money in the first place. But how would he be able to buy an 11,000 square foot mansion? According to the left, black people aren't supposed to be able to get mortgages. They're not supposed to be able to buy any home. Forget about a mansion. But we have rich black people like John Legend claiming this country is viciously racist. And there's so many others. When you watch MSNBC and Joy Reid, she's doing very well for herself. I don't know if you ever see one of her shows. When she's reporting from her house, that house is massive. She's doing very well for herself. The same thing with the moron on CNN, Don Lemon. Now, I have a little bit of ties to Don. I don't really know him, but I know people who know him because I've done deals with his husband. His husband's a real estate broker here in the city. And his husband's white, by the way. But you see, come on, racism, right? He's doing very well for himself. But the narrative that gets pushed over and over again is that this country is viciously and horribly and irredeemably racist. After last night's game, the media reached out to LeBron James. You could always count on LeBron James putting his foot in his mouth. Could always count on LeBron James saying the dumbest shit you could ever find, the dumbest shit you could ever imagine. Another guy who has been pampered. LeBron James has been pampered since he was in high school. High school. Pampered. I mean, I would even say worshipped. Everybody's been in that guy's jockstrap since he was a freaking kid. Another black person that has way more wealth and privilege and power than 99% of the white people in this country. But here's LeBron James saying that justice wasn't served yet again.
How emotional was the last 24 hours for you after the Breonna Taylor ruling, and how did you channel that for this win tonight?
Very heavy. The emotions was very high, and mean, we have a teammate on our team that's from Louisville and Rajon. So as heavy as it's been on us, it's even heavier on him because that's his hometown. And I just thought, I don't know if the case is, I don't want to get into the case of things of that nature, but I know we lost a beautiful woman in Breonna that has no say-so in what's going on right now. And we want justice, no matter how long it takes. Even though it's been so many days, so many hours, so many minutes for her family, for her community. I got a daughter of mine at home and a wife and my mom, and so many predominant black women in my life to think about if they weren't here the next day, or think if they were gunned down, it would be something I would never be able to forgive myself.
Oh my God! As if any of the women in his life is at risk of being gunned down by anybody. I'm pretty sure they're perfectly safe in his mansion in Brentwood. Okay. Oh, I have all these women in my life. Oh my God, they can be gunned down. You had idiots on MSNBC last night saying, "Oh, black people aren't safe at all. They're not safe in the street." And now this grand jury has just proven that they're not safe in their homes. So apparently in my apartment, the police could just knock on my door and shoot me, according to the left. This nonsense is so pervasive. It's not even funny. And I asked the question over and over again, how is this going to help? How is this going to help black people? How is pushing lies and distortions going to help black people? When black people are going about their daily lives, the only reason they're going to have any fear in their hearts about the police is because of all of the crap that the left and the media is saying about the police every day. The police are not getting up looking to kill people. They're not putting their lives at risk every day they go to work just to get at some black person. And it's not just LeBron James. Listen to what Nancy Pelosi said. Nancy Pelosi. Now, we know she's a moron. We know that she could barely keep her teeth in her mouth. We get all that. But you would think that as a Speaker of the House, I mean, you would try to promote civility, not divisions. You would want to get the facts right, because you know the ramifications of people listening to your lies. But of course, we all know that's what the Democrats want. Listen to Nancy Pelosi.
Today, we had the heartbreaking report, the news breaking that justice was denied of Breonna Taylor and her family. Just think if it were your daughter, your sister, your cousin, your relative, your friend, who was murdered. By the police.
By the police.
And there was the charging decision held no one accountable for her death.
Complete nonsense, folks.
Passed the George Floyd Justice and
complete nonsense, folks. What if it was your mother, your sister, your daughter, your aunt, blah, 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 blah? What if they were murdered in their house, in their homes, in their apartments by the police? That's not what happened. And the thing that's so scary to me is, even after all of the facts come out, they still push this shit. Celebrity after celebrity saying the same thing. You go all over Twitter. Breonna was murdered. Breonna was murdered. Justice for Breonna. Say her name. Say her damn name. What is saying her name going to do? As I mentioned earlier, you have Lizzo. Lizzo. Yeah, Lizzo. A no-talent hack. Let's face it, she's a no-talent hack. I don't give a damn. The fact is, the only reason Lizzo is being promoted in the first place is because she's fat and black. Come on. Let's tell the truth here. She's fat black. She's a fat black woman walking around, can barely walk around, and now they promote her. So now every time this chick opens her damn mouth, another one that says the stupidest shit you could ever imagine. That's what happens when you're an affirmative action push. When the white left can feel good about themselves. Hey, we got to find a black person. We got to promote them. Oh, and she's fat too. Yeah, there's a couple of rungs on the intersectional ladder. So then people like Lizzo are now given a platform to say stupid shit like this. This man, she's referring to Officer Miles Cosgrove, broke into her home, and shot her to death while she was sleeping. Oh, and he wasn't charged for murder. Does that sound fair to you? No justice, no peace. He broke into her home. All the facts are on the table. A grand jury was impaneled. And folks, if you know anything about grand juries, a grand jury will indict a ham sandwich. Everybody knows it. It's a very famous saying because everybody knows it. So instead of looking at the facts and saying, well, listen, they couldn't make it happen. Why? Because the facts are just not there. They continue to push this lie. Not only do they continue to push this lie, they're getting away with it. And this is why the left lies constantly, every single day, because they know they can get away with it. They have dumbed down their constituents so much that all you have to do is just put some new lie out there and they're going to take it hook, line, and sinker. Oh, the president never condemned the white supremacists in Charlottesville. The president condemned them totally. But here we are a couple of years later, and they're still pushing that lie. It's terrible stuff. Oh, the president's a racist. The president's a bigot. He's a homophobe. The president hates women. Well, can you please point to me any legislation or any speech or any policy that can back up any of those claims? You've been waiting here a long time. A very long time. Because it's all BS. They know it. Yet they continue to push it every single day. The media is completely in on this crap. Every day they're asking gotcha questions. So when the president responds, and look, the president is not a man that typically likes to self-edit. So he says what he's going to say, and then boom, oh, there's a news story. The president's not going to guarantee a peaceful transfer of power. He's a dictator. Oh, my God. But if you're really paying attention, the president knows exactly what he's doing. If the president were to say, yes, we're going to have a peaceful transfer of power, then the next minute, the media is going to be out there saying, oh, yeah, see, the president admits that he's losing in the polls and he's going to leave the White House. This is all a game. This is not about informing our population, informing American voters. This is a game that only ends up with them getting power. The black community, now speaking as a member of the black community, we can have it so good in this country if we stopped listening to and believing the lies. In my own case, I've mentioned a little bit about my background many times in this program. I was born and raised in the Bronx. My mother had me when she was 21 years old. My father was in and out of jail the entire time he was around before he died. He died when I was 12 years old. And by the way, and when he died, and I went to the funeral, oh, then guess what? I have like 6 or 7 other half brothers and sisters. Because when he was taking off, or when he wasn't in jail, he was banging other chicks and impregnating them. I didn't have a father growing up. He was never there. There were many temptations out there to join gangs, to sell drugs, to do drugs. But I thank God he put me on the straight and narrow. I thank God he exposed me to another way of living. And through working hard in the belief in the American dream, in the belief that we have a wonderful system that's not perfect, but it's a wonderful system. It's a system that has pulled more people out of poverty and has made us the most safest, most powerful, most richest nation that this world has ever seen. Is it perfect? No. But somebody like me, a kid from the Bronx that came up with nothing, is able to have success. I'm able to speak to you guys here on YouTube or on the podcast and speak freely, knowing that putting myself out there, people aren't going to like it. I'm a black conservative. I get that. I don't care. Because what this country has given me is way more important than the criticism or the peer pressure. There were a lot of people that I knew growing up, members of my family, people I went to junior high school with, people ripping and running the streets. There are a lot of people, I haven't seen Keith in years. Well, yeah, there's a reason for that. Because I knew in my heart, I thank God for this, because it was only God. My mother did the best she could. My grandmother helped her out tremendously. But it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough. I was able to experience many different walks of life from different people. When I went to high school, I was fortunate enough to get into LaGuardia High School, which is one of the specialized high schools here in New York. I played clarinet. I was pretty good at it. I played a lot of the youth orchestras here in New York. But more importantly, I was able to get exposed to other cultures, mainly white people, let's face it. When you're in the Bronx, you have a tendency to stay in the Bronx. You can do everything in the Bronx. You can go to the movies in the Bronx. You can go to restaurants in the Bronx. You can buy clothing in the Bronx. It's pretty much what it is. You can hop on a bus. You can hop on a cab, take a quick little train ride. It is what it is. You rarely went into Manhattan. So when I got into high school, it was a complete culture shock. It was a culture shock because there were so many things that was said about white people in particular that I came to realize wasn't true. I learned that about white people, and I learned that about the police specifically. I'll give you a reason why. When I was in high school, my second year of high school, 9/11 happened. So I'm dating myself a little bit. Look, I ain't that old, but I've been around for a little bit. So my sophomore year in high school, we had 9/11. And it was very difficult getting home. It was tough. You can look down Broadway and see the pillar of smoke coming up from the financial district. And because there were a lot of high-profile people who, a lot of high-profile people sent their kids to LaGuardia, we had pretty much a huge barricade around the school, manned by the police, little checkpoints, whatever. But I was able to interact with those cops. And I knew immediately. I said, wait a minute, something's strange here. Something's different. Because I was told all cops are bad. I was told, as I said in the last episode, that for every good cop, there are 10 bad cops. But I was treated fantastically well from these police officers. And after 9/11, I made it my business. Whenever I saw a police officer, thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for sacrificing your lives to make sure that I'm safe. From leaving your family every day with no guarantee of making it home. I was able to experience that. This is a fantastic country. Not perfect. Do we have a bad past? Of course we do. So what? Every country has a bad history. The left, and the black left in particular, make it seem as if we were the only ones who experienced slavery. We were the only ones who experienced discrimination and racism. That's not the case. Slavery and discrimination and racism has been something that has existed for a very long period of time. Remember Jews, right? They were in bondage for thousands of years. It's a terrible thing. But to have this constant indictment of the United States, and you completely glaze over, the left completely glosses over all of the strides that we've made in this country. We just had a black president. Not only was he elected, he was reelected. But white supremacy is still keeping black people down. In what world does that exist? In what world are they living in? This is not going to help black people at all. You're creating division. You're creating animosity. And you have set race relations back in this country 50 years. All the progress that has been made wiped away for politics. They have nothing else they can do to beat Donald Trump, so they have to do this. We see the chaos, we see the death, we see the destruction, we see the riots, we see the looting happening all over this country in Democrat-run cities. The left lies and says it's the president's fault. If the president wasn't fomenting hate, we wouldn't be here. None of these cities would be burning to the ground. BS. BS. But people buy this crap hook, line, and sinker. I don't know what the future holds for the black community in this country. Although I'm encouraged by the fact that there were a lot of new black conservatives coming into the fold, it's still a minority, a very small minority. 90% of the black people in this country are still going to vote for Joe Biden just because he has a D next to his name. They're not going to weigh the pros and cons. Everywhere you go, in school, at church, at family dinner, Trump is bad, Trump is bad, Trump is racist, Trump is sexist, Trump is bigoted, Trump is homophobic. It never ends. We've been voting for the Democrat Party for generations now, and nothing has changed. I hate, it really bothers the hell out of me because I know it doesn't have to be that way. I tried speaking to so many black people over the years, just trying to show them the way. Just even when you present them the facts, you present them information, nobody takes it seriously. Nobody wants to believe it because they don't have to. Or really, even if they wanted to, they're made to feel like crap for even considering an alternative. The peer pressure that exists in the black community, folks, is truly off the charts. The fact that you would even research the parties. Oh, what are you doing that for? Ain't going to be no Republican. You ain't white. You ain't rich. That's what I heard. Folks, this is terrible. It's terrible stuff. So don't be surprised if we continue to see more of this rioting in the streets. Don't be surprised if we continue to see all this looting and burning crap to the ground. A lot of people like to say, well, if Joe Biden wins, then all this is going to magically go away. I don't think so. If you look at the radical Marxists running Black Lives Matter, they want revolution. That old bum in the basement ain't giving them revolution. He's just a cog in the wheel. Okay? Joe Biden, now we know how far he's gone to the left, but to the left, he's still considered a moderate, folks. That should tell you everything you need to know. This is not going to stop. When we talk about the next election being the most important election of our time, that's not an understatement, folks. That really isn't an understatement. And what's so sad, too, is, again, black people are not even going to consider Donald Trump. Most of us are not. The president, people think the president's being hyperbolic when he says, oh, he's done more for the black community than since like Abraham Lincoln. But if you look at the facts, that's probably the case. Look at the black unemployment level prior to coronavirus. Before all this happened, we had safety, peace, prosperity. Not only did it benefit the rest of the country, but it specifically benefited black people. And here's today, the president announced a $500 billion Black America plan. This is from the Daily Caller. President Donald Trump will announce $500 billion, a $500 billion plan for Black America and designate both the KKK and Antifa as terrorist organizations. Trump is expected to make the announcements Friday afternoon at his Black Economic Empowerment event in Georgia. His plan reportedly would also designate lynching as a national hate crime, The report says Trump will pledge to increase access to capital in black communities by nearly $500 billion. For decades, Democrat politicians like Joe Biden have taken black voters for granted. They made you big promises before every election. And then the moment they got to Washington, they abandoned you and sold you out, Trump said. The Democrats will also take black voters for granted until large numbers of black Americans vote Republican. Trump's plan lays out 4 areas in which Trump vows to help black Americans over the next 4 years if reelected, namely opportunity, security, prosperity, and fairness, which is exactly what I just said. The Trump administration plan will create 3 million additional jobs for black Americans, as well as 500,000 newly owned black businesses. Does Joe Biden have a plan like that? Did the fallen Messiah Obama have a plan like that? No. But supposedly, this is a white supremacist saying this. This is a leader of all the white supremacy and oppression that exists in this country. With somebody who's a white supremacist, with somebody who's so filled with hate for black people, announced this $500 billion plan that solely benefits the black community. Folks, we can go on and on. We can go on and on, but we have other news. The good news is, folks, there are some people who have taken a look at this Breonna Taylor situation and have said, you know what, we need to get to some civility. And you know what, I got to hand it to Charles Barkley. I mean, Charles Barkley, you know, he's not a Republican, but he's not a whack job leftist either. So he's willing to step out and speak the truth when it's necessary. He's not somebody who's been allowed to get bullied and peer pressured into falling in line. Listen to what Charles Barkley had to say.
Just bad the young lady lost her life. But, you know, we do have to take into account that her boyfriend did shoot at the cops and shot a cop. So, like I say, even though I'm really sorry she lost her life, I don't think that we can just say we can put this in the same situation with George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery. I just don't believe that.
Now, I don't completely agree with what he said as far as, okay, some of the other cases that happened. But the fact is, folks, at least some people have a brain. At least some people are paying attention or realizing that you can't put this in the same category. Now, I would argue that there isn't really a pattern or a history of this in this country, but hey, what are you going to do? At least somebody out there is willing to say something, willing to say the truth. It is what it is. It is what it is, folks. And the New York Times, they continue this process over and over again. There's a real big hack. This guy's a hack. Another black millionaire doing very well for himself, living a fabulous life. He's not living in the hood. He's not going back to black communities, trying to help out the black community. He just writes crap for the New York Times and lets the bombs leave. He leaves the bombs wherever he left them. That's it. He just drops the bomb and there it is. And he's back into his wonderful mansion, making money, having a good time for himself. Charles Blow. So Charles Blow in the New York Times writes, and the headline is Breonna Taylor and Perpetual Black Trauma. He says the system erased her as if she never existed. It's BS. He wrote, I filed this column late, very late. I couldn't find the words. An unsettling experience for a writer. The words I did conjure failed, not because the message was difficult to convey, but rather because the conveyance is maddeningly depressive in repetition. The killing of Breonna Taylor reveals yet again how easy it is for the state to take a black life and how hard it is to hold the state accountable for its transgressions. That is in part because the system is designed to make it nearly impossible for the state to transgress. Taylor was an innocent woman. Here comes the lie yet again. Sleeping in her own home, breaking no law. The state broke down her door and shot her dead. You notice how Charles Blow completely glazes over the fact that her boyfriend shot at the police first after the police announced that they were coming into the apartment. And we have a witness who heard the police saying, hey, listen, we're coming in. Yet here's another idiot left-wing hack, a black left-wing hack who is a millionaire, writing filth like this. Most of what the state did in her home that night was, in fact, outrageously legal. Outrageously legal. According to the state attorney general, the two officers who shot her were justified in using lethal force because her boyfriend, believing that people were breaking into the house to harm him and Taylor, designed. See, folks, this is yet another lie. The police officers announced themselves. It's very convenient for the boyfriend to say, oh, I thought somebody was breaking into my house. Really? We have a witness who said he heard it loud as can be. This is the police. We're coming in. The officer said as soon as they got in the door, her boyfriend was in a stance, a posture, aiming his gun at the police. And he shot first. Charles Blow says she was sleeping peacefully in her house, and the boyfriend thought this was an intruder. When the grand jury charges were announced, only a third officer, who was fired in June, was charged, and not with anything that had anything to do with the killing of Taylor. He was charged with wanton endangerment because he shot so randomly that some bullets entered adjacent apartments. The grand jury system, the state, and many others erased Taylor as if she never existed. Her death was simply, quote unquote, a tragedy, a regrettable mistake for which no punishment was merited or required. Taylor was just 26, the same age as my oldest son is now. Taylor was a certified EMT, and her mother said she was planning a lifelong career in healthcare. Oh, is that right? My son is in medical school. She could have been my daughter. Oh, just like Obama with Trayvon, right? Oh, Trayvon. You know, if I had a son, he would look just like Trayvon. My son could have been her. They are both adults, to be sure, but to us, their parents, they are our children, our babies. You can't just cut down someone's baby and say, oh, well, no amount of money can fill the hole that was lost, the hole that was left. It was so egregious, like so many of these police shootings. And for months, we waited to see if justice would be served, hoping against hope, knowing that history had trained us in trauma, knowing that justice was unlikely. And in the end, the system performed precisely as expected. It disregarded the black body and defended the state bodies. When you are injured or killed by community violence, the law is on your side or on the side of the loved ones who grieve you. Justice in those cases can be swift and brutal. But when it is the state doing the hurting and the killing, the law is on their side. They are the law. That is why state violence is so insidious, because you are nearly helpless to protect yourself from it. People have to chant Black Lives Matter to assert it, to make it hang in the air so that both the person speaking those words and the person hearing them can remember it. Because the system demonstrates continually that those lives don't matter. Taylor was killed by the disastrous war on drugs that in and of itself is helplessly. Listen to this freaking moron. She was killed by the disastrous war on drugs that it itself hopelessly racial. Because, oh yes, the facts of these, folks, most of the drug crimes committed in this country are committed by black people. So therefore, if you're fighting the war on drugs, oh yes, that's a criminal justice system being racist as usual. You see, it's idiotic words like the words coming out of Charles Blow that permeate the black community. He's not saying anything that's completely profound. In fact, nothing about this is profound. This is what most black people think. She was killed by the judicial system that granted the warrant. She was killed by militarized hyper-policing that is too often dangerous and deadly. She was killed by public indifference that lets this all play out without demanding correction. This is a woeful ritual. This is a perpetual parade of anger and astonishment, of loss and longing, of demanding justice and being denied it. It is weighing on the souls of Black America and all Americans of good conscience. America has created an unsuitable condition, an unsustainable condition, a condition I fear will one day explode, and yet the country lacks the will or the inclination to right its wrongs. America, sadly, will regret this. And that was in the New York Times today, folks. Lie after lie after lie. No facts to back any of that up. Yet it's put out there in the mainstream media. This is why the president is doing yeoman's work reaching out to the Black community. The president is doing his damnedest. The president is doing far more than any other Republican before him to reach out to the Black community. And folks, it's not just about votes. You know this man, I know this man. It's not just about votes. It's because he genuinely cares about the Black community in this country. This is a president that, like you and me, have seen the death and destruction that's happening all over this country, and has specifically seen the decimation of the Black family and the Black community. The work that needs to get done over the next month, and we're just a little over a month on the election, is vital. If you expect to hold this country together, if we expect to bridge the gap, we need to get out there every single day and tell the truth, to fight back against the frontiers of ignorance, to fight back against the frontiers of lies. If we don't do that, if we don't put in this important work, we are going to lose this country. This is a wonderful country. The best country on God's green earth. But it can go away just like that. We have to stop these radical leftists in their tracks. It's not just about the bum in the basement. It's not just about Kamala Harris. It's the left as a whole that needs to be stopped in its tracks. You know it's not going to be the end of it, folks. As you get closer and closer to the election, there's going to be more. We have to wait till October to get the wonderful October surprise. You know it's coming. But hang in there, folks. We're going to do this. This country's best days are coming. And I truly believe that. I think we're destined by God for that to happen. So that's it for today. Thank you guys for joining us. If you like what you've heard, please be sure to like and subscribe. Leave your comments. Hit the subscribe button on YouTube. Subscribe on Apple. I thank you guys so much. Have a wonderful weekend. And we'll see you back here on Monday. Take care.